It was just a quiet morning, the kind where the house feels too still, the kettle whistles just a little louder, and the chair creaks as you sit alone again. You stir your tea slowly, not because it's too hot, but because you suddenly realize you don't really know what to do with your time anymore. For years, maybe decades, your time wasn't yours. You were the mother who always said yes, the father who worked late, the daughter who showed up even when exhausted, the husband who fixed everything before anyone asked. You were the yes in everyone's calendar. But when was the last time you said yes to yourself? And here you are, 65, 70, maybe even 80, still waking up to a day that doesn't feel like it belongs to you. You've earned your peace, you've done your part, but somehow you still feel obligated to answer that call, to say of course when asked, to show up, to serve, even when no one thanks you, even when your heart quietly pleads, "Can I rest now?" Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt guilty for wanting to be left alone, for needing space, for saying not today? You are not alone in that feeling. But here's something we were never told. You do not owe anyone your time anymore. Not your grown children, not your neighbors, not your community. Not even the past version of you that thought selflessness meant self-erasure. Let that sink in. You are not selfish for wanting hours that are just yours. You are not wrong for protecting your peace. You are not too old to begin again, living by your own rhythm. And please don't leave yet, because what I'm about to say next might be the very thing you needed to hear for decades. Stay with me. The truth is, this feeling didn't start yesterday. It's been planted in you little by little over a lifetime. You see, when we were young, we were praised for being helpful, for being generous, for being the child who never complained, the one who cleaned up without being asked, the one who stayed quiet to keep the peace. We learned that love was earned through service, that to be needed was to be valuable. And so we grew up, building our identity on the quiet agreement that others come first. Always. We became the dependable one, the one who shows up, no matter how tired. We put our own needs second, third, sometimes not even on the list. But what happens when the people who needed us don't anymore? What happens when the kids are grown, the house is quiet, the job is gone, and no one is asking anymore? For many of us, that's when the ache begins. Not just the ache of loneliness, but of confusion. Who are you when you're no longer defined by what you do for others? That guilt, the one that whispers, you should be doing more, you should be helping, you should be available. It doesn't come from truth. It comes from conditioning. From a society that values productivity over peace, that calls self-care selfish, that tells older people their worth lies in staying useful rather than simply being. And let's not ignore the subtle pressure from loved ones, even if unintentional. The adult child who assumes you'll watch the grandkids because you're just at home. The sibling who expects emotional support because you have time now. The friend who calls at all hours because you're always there. At some point, you started to believe that your time didn't really belong to you. That being retired meant being on call. But here's something most people won't say out loud. You are allowed to choose yourself now. No one ever taught you how to say no, kindly, clearly, without guilt. No one gave you permission to rest, to do nothing, to simply enjoy your morning, your quiet, your cup of tea without interruption. But you don't need their permission anymore. This part of your life, this season, is not for proving your worth. It's for reclaiming it. And I know it's hard to untangle years of beliefs. You might still hear that voice in your head saying, "But I should." But pause for a moment and ask, says who? Who told you that everyone else's needs matter more than yours? Because until we question that voice, we keep running in circles, giving, until we're too tired to even feel joy. And that's not living, that's surviving on autopilot. Let me gently remind you, you've already given enough, and you are enough, even when you're doing nothing for anyone else. In the next part, we'll talk about what happens when you ignore that truth for too long, and how it slowly disconnects you from yourself. But for now, just sit with this. You are not selfish for wanting your time back. You are human, and you are finally allowed to breathe. It doesn't happen all at once. You don't wake up one day and say, "I've lost myself." No, it happens slowly, quietly, in the hundreds of moments you say yes when you meant no, in the times you smiled while your heart sank, in the days you postponed your own joy to keep someone else comfortable. And then one day, the silence feels heavier than usual. You look around your home, maybe the house is clean, the chores are done, the list is checked off, but something inside you is missing. That something is you. Because here's the hard truth no one talks about. When you spend years, even decades, bending yourself to serve others, you eventually forget what it feels like to stand tall in your own desires. You forget what you enjoy, what excites you, what makes your heart feel full, what your mornings would look like if they belonged to you, not to obligations. And this kind of forgetting doesn't feel dramatic. It feels like numbness. It feels like staring at the calendar and realizing you don't know what to do with the next 24 hours because no one else needs you today. For some, this leads to a quiet sadness. For others, a creeping anxiety. The sense that time is slipping through your fingers and you have no idea how to hold it for yourself. Psychologists call this role-based identity loss. It happens when someone's entire sense of worth is tied to what they do for others. Parent, caregiver, partner, worker. When those roles fade, they're left with questions like, who am I now? What's the point of my day? Do I even matter if no one needs me? These questions are not signs of weakness. They are signs that you're waking up to the parts of yourself you left behind. But here's where hope begins. That emptiness, it's not a void. It's a blank canvas. And yes, it can be terrifying at first. Because filling that canvas means learning to listen to your own voice again. Not the voice of duty, not guilt, not tradition, your voice. And sometimes that voice is faint because it hasn't been heard in years. So start gently. Start by asking yourself, what do I want this afternoon to feel like? If no one else had a say, not what you should do, not what would be productive, just what would bring you peace. It could be something small, a walk, a nap, painting, music, silence, a cup of coffee at your favorite spot with no one to rush home to. These tiny acts of choosing yourself are not selfish. They are sacred. They are the first steps back to remembering who you are. And in the next part, we'll talk about how to break free, not from people, but from the invisible chains that keep you saying yes when your soul is screaming no. But for now, remember this. You haven't lost yourself. You've just been quiet for too long. And now it's your turn to speak. There's a moment, a quiet, unassuming moment when everything shifts. It's not dramatic. No one else may even notice. But something inside you finally stands up and says, I'm tired. Not physically tired, though maybe that too, but emotionally, soul-deep tired. Tired of being available. Tired of being polite. Tired of giving every drop of yourself and calling it love. And in that moment, something sacred happens. You stop apologizing. You stop explaining why you can't take the call, why you won't make the dinner, why you'd rather sit in silence than attend another gathering out of obligation. You start honoring your no. Not with guilt, but with grace. Because here's what no one teaches us growing up. Saying no doesn't make you unkind. It makes you honest. And truthfully, you've spent a lifetime proving you are kind. You've said yes when it cost you sleep. You've said yes when your back ached. You've said yes when your heart needed rest. You don't need to prove anything anymore. And yet, I know. That first no is the hardest. It feels unnatural, like you're letting someone down, like you're becoming someone cold. But pause. Ask yourself, who taught you that rest was wrong? Who said that peace must be earned through exhaustion? Was it your culture, your parents, your years in service to a job, a household, a community? Whatever it was, it's time to rewrite it. Because the truth is this, you are allowed to protect your time. You are allowed to want stillness. You are allowed to choose yourself, even if no one else understands. That's not selfish. That's healing. And when you begin to live this way, something unexpected happens. The world doesn't fall apart. People adjust. Some may even respect you more. And those who don't, they were never truly loving the real you, only the version of you that served them. There's a kind of freedom that comes when you stop managing other people's comfort, when you let go of the need to explain every boundary, when you start treating your time like the sacred, limited gift it is. Because let's be honest, time is all you have now. You don't get to relive your 60s. You don't get a second run at your 70s. Every moment you spend resentfully is a moment you never get back. So let this be the beginning of a new chapter. One where you wake up and ask, what do I need today? And then, without guilt, you give it to yourself. And if that still feels uncomfortable, just remember, you've spent your entire life giving. Now, you're simply returning home to you. In the next part, we'll talk about small, simple ways to reclaim your time, not by cutting people off, but by coming back to what lights you up inside. So now you're here. You've looked back at a lifetime of giving, and you're starting to ask, what about me? But how do you begin? After all these years, how do you reclaim time that's always belonged to everyone else? The answer is not drastic. You don't need to burn bridges. You don't need to make announcements. You don't need to suddenly disappear or justify your every decision. You simply begin with a whisper, not a roar. Step 1. Make a daily date with yourself and protect it like gold. Start small, 10 minutes, 15 if you're feeling bold. It could be morning when the world is still quiet, or mid-afternoon when the house feels hollow. But make that time sacred. Read something just because you want to. Take a walk with no destination. Sit in the sun, listen to your favorite music, stare out the window and do absolutely nothing, without guilt. That moment isn't wasted. It's healing. Because every time you choose yourself, you tell your nervous system, I matter too. Step 2. Learn to say no, softly but firmly. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need long apologies. You can simply say, I'm not available today, or I'm taking this time for myself, and then stop talking. Silence sometimes is the most powerful boundary. Will some people be surprised? Yes. Will some feel disappointed? Possibly, but their discomfort is not your responsibility. Your peace is. Step 3. Revisit the things that once lit you up. What did you love before life became a list of obligations? Was it painting, gardening, writing, music? Maybe it was something you never had time for because you were always busy helping, working, fixing, running. Now is the time to return to it, not to become great at it, not to impress anyone, but simply because it feels good, because it brings you back to yourself. Step 4. Replace guilt with gratitude for your own courage. Every time that old guilt creeps in, the voice that says you should be doing more, pause, and then say quietly, no, this moment is mine, and I'm grateful I finally chose me. That shift is everything. It turns self-care from a luxury into a necessity. It transforms solitude into sanctuary. It helps you remember that your life, this life, is still yours to shape. And here's the most beautiful part. When you begin to live this way, you start showing up for others in a new way, not out of obligation, but out of overflow. Not because you have to, but because you want to, and that changes everything. In the next part, we'll talk about what this all means for your future, how choosing yourself today creates a life of peace, depth, and quiet joy tomorrow. But before we go there, just take this in. You don't owe anyone your time anymore. You're allowed to give it, but you're also allowed to keep it. And in that choice, you find freedom. Let this truth settle into you like the softness of morning light. You've already given enough. You've been strong for everyone. You've stayed late, stayed quiet, stayed generous, even when no one noticed. You've held families together, picked up broken pieces, and smiled through exhaustion. But now, it's your turn. Not to prove anything, not to serve someone else's needs, but to simply be as you are without explanation. This next chapter of your life is not about being needed. It's about being whole, being at peace, being free to choose without guilt. You don't owe anyone your time anymore. You owe yourself the years you still have left. So maybe today you take a quiet step. You sit with a book, you walk without a phone, you say no without a speech. You breathe, not because your body demands it, but because your soul deserves it. And when that guilt creeps in, when the urge to justify or over-explain rises, pause. Place your hand over your heart and whisper, "I'm allowed to choose me." Let that be your new beginning. And if something in this video touched your heart, if you saw yourself in these words, I invite you, gently, truly, to leave a comment below. Just type, "I choose to live for myself from today." Not for me, not for the algorithm, but for you. So you can see it written, so you can return to it whenever you forget. And if you want more moments like this, more stories, more healing, more reminders that it's never too late to return to yourself, subscribe to this channel. This space was made for you, not the you who gives to everyone else, but the quiet, tired, beautiful soul who just wants to come home. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And most of all, thank you for beginning again with you.